Edward Theodore Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainfield, was an American murderer and body snatcher. His crimes committed around his hometown of Plainfield, Wisconsin, gathered widespread notoriety after authorities discovered that Gein had exhumed corpses from the local graveyards and fashioned trophies and keepsakes from their bones and skin. On the morning of November 16, 1957, Plainfield hardware store owner Bernice Warden disappeared. A Plainfield resident reported that the hardware store's truck had been driven out from the rear of the building around 9:30 a.m. The hardware store was closed the entire day. Some area residents believed this was because of the deer hunting season. Bernice Warden's son, Deputy Sheriff Frank Warden, entered the store around 5 p.m. to find the store's cash register open and blood stains on the floor. Frank Warden told investigators that Ed Gein had been in the store the evening before his mother's disappearance, and that he would return the next morning for a gallon of antifreeze. A sales slip for a gallon of antifreeze was the last receipt written by Warden on the morning she disappeared. On the evening of the same day, Gein was arrested at a West Plainfield grocery store. The county sheriff department searched the Gein farm. The county sheriff's deputy discovered Warden's decapitated body in a shed on Gein's property, hung upside down by her legs with a crossbar at her ankles and ropes at her wrist. The torso was dressed out like a deer. She had been shot with a .22 caliber rifle, and the mutilations were made after her death. Searching the house, authorities found whole human bones and fragments, waste baskets made of human skin covering several chair seats, female skulls, bowls made from human skulls, a corset made from a female torso skinned from shoulders to waist, leggings made from human leg skin, a mask made from the skin of a female's head, Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag, Mary Hogan's skull in a box, Bernice Warden's entire head in a burlap sack, Bernice Warden's heart in a plastic bag in front of Gein's pot-bellied stove, a young girl's dress in the vulvas of two females judged to have been about 15 years old, a belt made from female human nipples, 4 noses, a pair of lips on a window shade drawstring, a lampshade made from the skin of a human face, and fingernails from female fingers. These artifacts were photographed at the state crime laboratory and then destroyed. When questioned, Gein told investigators that between 1947 and 1952, he made as many as 40 nocturnal visits to 3 local graveyards to exhume recently buried bodies while he was in a dazed-like state. On about 30 of these visits, he said he came out of the daze while in the cemetery, left the grave in a good order, and returned home empty-handed. On other occasions, he dug up the graves of recently buried middle-aged women he thought resembled his mother, and took the bodies home with him, where he tanned their skins to make his paraphernalia. Gein admitted to stealing from 9 graves and led investigators to their locations. Because authorities were uncertain as to whether the slight Gein was capable of single-handedly digging up a grave during a single evening, they exhumed 2 of the graves and found them empty, thus apparently corroborating Gein's confession. Alan Willibomowski of the State Crime Laboratory participated in opening 3 test graves identified by Gein. The caskets were inside wooden boxes. The top boards ran crossways. The top of the boxes were about 2 feet below the surface in sandy oil. Gein had robbed the grave soon after the funerals, while the graves were not completed. They were found as Gein described. 1 casket was empty. 1 Gein had failed to open when he lost his pry bar. Soon after his mother's death, Gein began to create a woman suit so that he could become her, to literally crawl into her skin. Gein denied having relations with the bodies he exhumed, explaining, "They smelled too bad." During state crime laboratory interrogation, Gein also admitted to the shooting death of Mary Hogan, a tavern owner missing since 1954, whose head was found in his house. But he later denied memory of details of her death. A 16-year-old whose parents were friends of Gein, who had attended ball games and movies with him, reported that Gein kept shrunken heads in his house, which Gein had described as relics from the Philippines sent by a cousin who had served on the islands during World War II. Upon investigation by the police, these were determined to be human skins, carefully peeled from corpses and used by Gein as mask. Gein was also considered a suspect in several other unsolved cases in Wisconsin, including the 1953 disappearance of Evelyn Hartley, who was actually a babysitter. During questioning, a county sheriff, Art Schley, reportedly assaulted Gein by banging his head and face into a brick wall. As a result, Gein's initial confession was ruled inadmissible by the court. Schley died of a heart failure at age 43 in 1968, before Gein's trial. Many who knew Schley said he was traumatized by the horror of Gein's crimes. And this, along with the fear of having to testify, caused his death. One of his friends said he was a victim of Ed Gein's as surely as if he had butchered him. In 1957, Gein was deemed unfit for trial, but in 1968, doctors determined that Gein was mentally able to confer with counsel and participate in his defense. The trial began November 7, 1968, and lasted 1 week. A psychiatrist testified that Gein had told him that he did not know whether the killing of Bernice Wharton was intentional or accidental. Gein had told him that while he examined the gun in Wharton's store, the gun went off, killing Wharton. Gein testified that after trying to load a bullet into the rifle, it discharged. He said he had not aimed the rifle at Wharton and did not remember anything else that happened that morning. At the request of the defense, Gein's trial was held without a jury. Gein was found guilty. A second trial dealt with Gein's sanity. After testimony by doctors for the prosecution and defense, they ruled again not guilty by reason of insanity and ordered him committed to Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. Gein spent the rest of his life in a mental hospital. But due to prohibitive costs, Gein was tried for only one murder, and that was Miss Wharton. He also admitted killing Mary Hogan. On July 26, 1984, Ed Gein died at Mendota Mental Health Institute due to respiratory failure, but secondary to lung cancer.